Hey, Bayek, it's me, Ian. And in today's video, we're going to do The Revenge of Frankenstein. Oh, yes. From 1958. In fact, this is probably my earliest Hammer horror film that I've reviewed so far. So, that's exciting, isn't it? It's actually a direct sequel to The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957, which really put Hammer on the map. It was massive at the time, absolutely massive. So inevitably, a sequel was ordered, and this was really big for Hammer. Also, with this film as well, they'd signed a deal with Columbia in America for the distribution. It was all going really well. Definitely. They were the new stars, really, in producing these type of horror films. I mean, nobody else was doing it. Universal were just, the old Universal. They were not doing this kind of thing anymore. And here we have Hammer Horror making its claim and saying, look at us, look how different we are from those old classics. And they were bright Technicolor. Yes, bright Technicolor. And what I like about this sequel is actually a definite progression as well. I mean, this sequel is really good. I think it's better than you expect. Really, it's that good. I really enjoy this. I really rate this one because it has that. It's a progression. It has the originality, and what I like already, they're not sticking stringently to the book. The book. Mary Shelley's great. It's just, it's great. They're evolving. I mean, the monster, as I use the word monster again, is a million miles away from Boris Karloff's portrayal. The monster in this film is played by Michael Gwynn, whose brain has been transplanted from the hunchback figure. Carl is the hunchback figure. Anyhow, that's just letting you know that the monster is different, but of course, for various reasons, as normally happens, he degenerates into this really monstrous figure. But as I say, in looks and appearance, it's very different from the Karloff thing. And then, anyhow, this is directed by Terence Fisher. Oh, yes, Terence Fisher. He was to serve Hammer really well. I mean, he'd already done a lot of earlier stuff. He had a career, and, well, what can you say? He just progressed real well. I mean, you could say he was doing the original Dracula, the Mummy, the Werewolves, all those original starts at Hammer he was involved in. But he went on. What I like about him as a director, he progressed really. He didn't just get stuck in one sort of area in Hammer, and he progressed. I mean, he was the director of The Devil Rides Out from 1968. So, I mean, that is considered one of the great Hammer horror films. And then he was in Frankenstein again, doing Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed from 1969. And then the very last Frankenstein film they did is Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. I love that title. Yeah, it's great. And now look how it's progressed, and he is moving with the times in terms of horror as well. I mean, this is interesting because, as I say, it's a lot more bloodier, I think. The technical really shows that. And we could say a bit more gory. And this is why the critics, they kind of look down on this thing. Why? And it still goes on in all sorts of genres, like with sci-fi and horror. But then, there's this, horror. But if you look at Rotten Tomatoes today, it's now given 92%, which is obviously a really good ratings. Critics have looked at this now, and really, it's accepted as one of the great Hammer films. But it is interesting how Hammer, in many ways, had to fight to get recognition. But the public, of course, they loved it. I mean, they'd say no like it. I mean, this is the thing. I don't think a lot of people perhaps understand the importance of Hammer in horror terms. It's full colour. The public lapping this up. It kind of goes back to, Victorian era, if you want, in terms of, the Penny Dreadfuls when they were published. They were loved by all the general population, all the public, and then scorned by the literary circles, we don't have this. But Hammer are doing this. They're appealing to the general public. They're appealing to people to go and enjoy themselves and really escape. And here it is. This is absolutely wonderful. I can't believe it, how the public latched on. Obviously, public tastes differ and go up and down, but one thing we can say is about Hammer is Hammer really, really gave what the public wanted, and they really overrode that snobbery that you do get. And this is where Hammer are so important and influenced a lot of filmmakers. As we know, the Americans were even influenced by Hammer films. And obviously, when we get to the 1970s, the American influence is the dominant one in terms of horror filmmaking, and Hammer, to some extent, are having to catch up with the Americans. But a lot of those American filmmakers were very influenced by Hammer. They owe a lot of their sort of development from Hammer. And Hammer, as well, the other interesting thing is, because at the same time we've got Hitchcock producing Psycho, which was such a massive influence. And I think together they had quite a interesting, development together and influence on horror itself. So we should look at that. So let's get here I'm rambling on, but let's get to the point. Peter Cushing again returns as the Baron, but this time because he's in disguise at first. He's called Dr. Stein. You can see the originality there, but he wonderfully plays this part again. What I love as well is the start of the film. It just follows the end of the Curse of Frankenstein. We see him, the Baron Frankenstein, going to the gallows, going to get his head chopped off, guillotine. Aye, so we see this, and we see the guillotine, and I think, oh, they've killed him off. They can't have done, surely not. And of course, we soon find out that the Baron has not been killed off. It was a priest that met the fate of the guillotine. Ah, yes. Anyhow, basically, it's the old Baron and he's back. And he's been rather clever as well. Because he's very popular. He's financing all what he's going to be up to by the local community. And actually, it's quite interesting because in the first film, we could see he's quite a ladies' man. And here he pretends he's very much that like, all the ladies are coming to him, but actually he's gone a bit cold of all that. He's not the ladies' man. He hasn't got really time for them. But under the pretense, yes, he does, because he needs the money. And what he does, he's very crafty. He works in a poor hospital. You know, those poor people, they look good. They look that he could use them for his experiments. You know, oddle him here and there, you know. No one's going to notice. It's the poor hospital. And that's how the film develops, you know, his hidden secrets. And he gets his assistant, ably played by the brilliant Francis Matthews. Now, Francis Matthews is a really good... I always see Francis Matthews, it's his voice in Captain Scarlet. Yeah. Jerry Anderson's Captain Scarlet. I always hear that wonderful voice. And also, you know him as well because he appeared in 1966 Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which was another remake, really, of the Dracula story. Progressing a bit, but it's rumoured actually that Christopher Lee wasn't very happy in that because he had no dialogue hardly, you know. I mean, this is the thing about Dracula was always behind Frankenstein. You can't just stick to Bram Stoker's book, for goodness sake. Hammer recognised that. And Dracula had to evolve as a character. You can't stick Dracula to the book. You've got to evolve him. And that's what they did. They started to evolve him. But it took a bit of time. Whereas Frankenstein was already evolving. He wasn't... Hammer didn't tie him to the books. So Dracula had to learn from that. And it took time. But eventually Dracula, fortunately, developed its own style and moved away from the Bram Stoker book. You know, I mean, it had to, let's face it. You can't just stick that. Anyhow, that's me rambling on again. Oh yeah, just a word. The lead woman in this is Eunice Gayson. Now, to be fair, she does the best she can in the role, and I think she's quite good. But there's not a great deal of weight to her character, which is a shame, really. But, you know, in 90 minutes, you've got a lot to pack in. Unfortunately, the script writer didn't really, think that we needed more of her as a character, which is a shame, you know. It was Jimmy Sangster again who was wrote brilliant script. It is, but so that's just, you could look at it as a slight problem. But she's very good at what she does in it. And she does, actually. I love me connections. James Bond connection. She went on and was a Bond girl in Dr. No and From Russia With Love. So, hey, there we are. Bit there extra. So, it's just a great film. And evolves so beautifully. And I love the way Peter Cushing has evolved. It's called Revenge, and he does want revenge because he's rather been, you know, he feels that he wasn't misunderstood totally. And look what they did to him. They sent him to the gallows, you know, so you can understand why he wants his revenge. But as I say, I love the take on the monster, really. You almost don't want to call it a monster, but I suppose ultimately some people would call him the monster, which you could argue about. But it's just interesting the way it starts off, and I think that's really commendable. So in the first film, you got Christopher Lee as the monster, and in a way, it's like still harking back to the Karloff, idea about what the monster should be like. Christopher Lee's playing it in his way, but it's really harking back to Karloff, whereas this time it's not at all. And I think that's important. It just shows how innovative Hammer were, and I like that. And the script is so good; it's able to do that. So I think when you look at this, this film just shows you the way a Hammer will go, how Hammer is going to develop. And I think that makes it really strong. It really makes it a great sequel. Because sometimes sequels, well, they're a letdown sometimes. But this isn't. I mean, we do know some good sequels. And I put this up with one of those where you say, yeah, the sequel is excellent. And this is the definite case of it. And I say, Peter Cushing now, he's so confident as this character. He knows the character. And he, again, just produces a wonderful performance. It really elevates everything he does. And you can imagine, he would have been very happy now because people were giving him the recognition that he needed. I suppose some people would be surprised that Peter Cushing didn't go off to other pastures after this. But it's interesting that he did stick with Hammer Horror. I mean, obviously, he did work for other production companies, did other films, but there was always that affinity with Hammer Horror. He wasn't worried about getting typecast at all. And that's what's great about him. But I mean, Peter Cushing, we could talk about a long time as such a great actor, one of my favourite actors, definitely, because you just can't help but respect him, what he did. It's just amazing. And I think a lot of American people will recognise that too, which is great because he should get more recognition, like the films, like Hammer films. I keep banging on about it. I know I can't help it, but I get excited, and this is a great film to watch. You think 1958, crikey, 1958. Yes, 1958. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Just a quick word. It's this is on Indicator. It's, I think, within the last couple of years or so was released on Indicator, and it's from a 4K restoration. So that's interesting. They've taken and it looks brilliant. The colours pop on here. Honestly, I know this is a Blu-ray, but it look, but it's never looked so good. Absolutely brilliant, and also the extras, some absolutely spot on extras on here. So this is well worth looking for, well worth getting. So that's it. I think that's it. Yes, that's my review. And here it is again. The Revenge of Frankenstein. Yeah. Well, as I say, here we are again. So if you are interested, I want to know, just click the subscription thing, subscribe and all that stuff. But please, if you like it, if you like what I'm doing, well, if you don't do it, but give it a like. Go and just click. Boom. There we are. Fantastic. It's all done. Cost you a note. You can't beat that, can you? Hey, by heck, you can't. So, all I gotta say is, I'll see thee, and I'll see thee again.